Before we start, you should probably breathe, just like a deep breath. That felt okay? Deep breath. All right. That way, get all the nerves out. Being Black, gay, and of Caribbean background comes with its own particular challenges, some of them which can intensify the experience. Here to share his personal experiences growing up Black, gay, and Jamaican is Kash Fuller. Kash Fuller, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Let's get into your story. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from and what were your earliest experiences?
I was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and I grew up in Jamaica until I was about 10. And then my family, we migrated to South Florida, the Fort Lauderdale area. And I would say like my experiences in my earlier years in Jamaica, I wasn't really made fun of a lot viciously for being like, more feminine, but and that's because I kind of grew up with, family, like first cousin, second cousin. So, outside of having like little nicknames, that was mostly so my experiences. I think once you know, start to come into your own and understanding, I might be gay. I'm in this Caribbean family. I know this is not accepted. This is not something that's talked about. And I'm like one of the older grandkids. So it's just,
Mhm.
it was kind of interesting having to kind of silence that part of who I was. And I think for me, I just knew I needed to express it. And the easiest option was just to kind of go away. Let's just kind of leave the family alone, go off to school. So I feel like I grew up very close to my family. And then once I realized that because I could be gay, I might be rejected or looked at like I'm ashamed. I think I kind of distanced myself from the family. So I've never really, outside of my grandma, I had a conversation with anyone in the family where I have like admitted, like, yes, I am gay. And I think many reasons for that, but I think it's just like straight people don't have to go around and tell, other straight people I'm straight. So I feel like I don't want to, and I don't have to.
Say you get to a point where you have a partner. Would you be able to take your partner around your family? And if you did, how would you navigate that?
I think my parents know. I think the family knows. I think they're just waiting on me to kind of confirm things. And it's just like, I have no problem if I have a partner doing that because I think that is a level of respect to my partner, not bringing him into a hostile situation. So I'll make sure I do it ahead of time, give everybody enough time to process all the emotions before bringing a partner in. But yes, I would have the conversation then. But as a single man now, I don't feel like it serves any purpose.
Coming out to a family, and especially I would imagine a Caribbean family, could take quite a bit of processing. And so you don't think it would be a better idea to maybe come out a lot further ahead of time as opposed to bringing a partner into what could be a very challenging situation if you told them later on?
They know.
Okay.
I know they know. I haven't brought a girlfriend home. I don't have any kids. And according to my grandma, I'm very handsome. So I don't know why they're waiting on me to have a conversation.
If you were to come out to your family, even though you say that you know that they know, how do you think they would respond?
I think my dad, surprisingly, would be probably more open-minded and accepting and probably, have a conversation and it might go, I don't necessarily agree, but you're my son anyways, and I'm going to love you. I think my mom might have a harder time with processing all of this. She's a Jehovah's Witness, and they have certain religious beliefs that I'm pretty sure might hold strong, but I have never really given her the opportunity to have that conversation. So it can be 50-50 with my mom.
Outside of sexuality, just in general, what is your relationship like, particularly with your parents?
Outside of like talking about sex, I think we have a great, relationship. Could it be closer? Yes. And I think, if I was able to kind of fully express how I authentically show up, it would be a closer relationship. But I feel like because I have to hide a certain part of who I am, I don't show up always present. And I think for my dad, I think, growing up, I always felt my dad was harder on me than, my brother or my sister. Now, as I'm older, I kind of get it. You're the kind of the eldest. I kind of want you to be as tough as nails.
Yes.
And but I just, as a child, I never really understood that. But now in my older, era, I've kind of, have a more appreciation for my dad and kind of the mentality he kind of, instilled in me. I think, my confidence and just me being able to kind of not take shit from anybody, I think definitely comes from, my dad and his side.
Do you think that even though you and your dad have not had that conversation yet, that confidence that he instilled and that discipline and structure and the way he showed up for you has created a sort of confidence in yourself now, even regarding your sexuality?
Yeah, I feel like how I show up is I want to be as authentic as I can. And a part of my authenticity, is my fashion, how I want to look on the outside. So it's just like, I like to go to the gym. I like to make sure, I have a haircut at least once a week. And, I smell good. I think, that's definitely there. And I think kind of the mental confidence is also kind of there. My mom, I would say, my mom is book smart and my dad is kind of street smart, and I'm like a good mix of like both of them. My mom is definitely somebody who's to the books, following the rules. My dad is kind of a rebel. He has a rebellious spirit to him, and nobody can tell my dad what to do. And I feel like a lot of that and his confidence, I just kind of see in myself and how I kind of show up and want to show up in the world. And I think that has led me to do things, I never what I do thought was possible, but sometimes you don't understand it at the time. Like I never thought I'd be in a PhD program, one of the only Black males. My presence is a disruptor, and I like to do that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You grew up in a Jamaican household, Jamaican culture. Let's first talk about recognizing your sexuality. When did you first recognize that you were attracted to men?
A pretty young age, I would say elementary school.
What let you know that that might be a problem? When did you recognize that was an issue?
You learn it through the music, the culture, the people. You learn how your family reacts to somebody who is older and flamboyant. You might be about five, and you might have an older relative, or you might see an older person that's a little bit feminine, and you see how they're treated and how even your own family treats them, and you're just like, huh, well, if you can treat them because they act like that, then you're going to treat me because I act that same way. As I've gotten older with my family, it's become a defense mechanism to kind of keep them at a distance because, if you are not going to accept me for who I am, then if I don't have a tight, close relationship, it won't feel like heartbreak.
When you say it won't feel like heartbreak because you don't have a tight, close relationship, can you elaborate on that?
I think if I disclose my sexuality, those who accept me, like me and my grandma, we will have like a closer relationship. But I don't want to have to go through that process of figuring out who is going to reject or who is going to accept me in the family to kind of build those closer relationships.
It sounds like obviously you really love your family.
Yes.
You and your family have a very close bond. Uh, but a pain that could come with coming out to your family that you aren't sure how you be able to deal with is experiencing what may be conditional love because of your sexuality.
Yeah. And a part of me should, should have enough faith in my parents to say, you know what, they would love me regardless. But I think not walking this earth without my mom, I think will be a heartbreak to me.
Do you feel like you may disappoint them, or what is it in particular?
I feel like I've been conditioned all my life to think that there's something wrong with being gay. And I think now I have to go to my Jamaican parents who have sacrificed so much to get us to the US and the opportunities that we have now. And then having to tell them that I could be a disappointment, I think is what's holding me back. It's just like I don't want my parents to view me as a disappointment, which is why I don't mind getting more accolades. I don't mind being the first doctor in the family. I don't mind checking the first boxes because it restores some order in my life. Like, yes, you might disappoint them because, you choose a lifestyle that they might not agree with, but, you are achieving, quote unquote, the American dream.
I think ambition is great to have. We love ambitious black men, but do you think that you may be striving for these high accolades to compensate for feeling like a disappointment?
It doesn't overcompensate or compensate. I think it's just actually alignment, and I'm actually using it to kind of, you know, impress my parents in a bit.
Again, congratulations on so many wonderful accomplishments. I have to ask this, in general, how do you feel about yourself? Do you experience any shame about yourself? Have you fully accepted yourself as a Black gay Jamaican man?
I had a lot of shame, a lot of shame. And over the years, the shame kind of chip away. The shame was very much so there throughout like middle school, high school, and then college. It's like, you know what, I'm gonna kind of relax. But I think entering into this PhD program has made me unlearn a lot of things I've learned about the world that is not just fair or equitable. And I think like going through that whole process, it has, made me kind of open my eyes about like, two things can coexist. Like I can be gay and I can be Jamaican. And it's definitely allowed me to embrace myself more, which, kind of led to me expressing myself more on social media. It's just like my existence is a disruptor. So I do not want to be invisible or silent. I want to be seen. And yes, I am coming to full terms with myself. I wouldn't say I'm 100% because I think there's always room, but I think I am definitely at a high threshold.
When you say coming to terms, besides, the cultural shame that exists around sexuality, what other personal challenges have you faced when it's come to coming to terms with who you are and that part of yourself where your sexuality exists?
A good question. There's so many different angles to approach that, but I think for me, sexuality should be seen as fluid. And I think it just depends on where you're at in time. But I think outside of like being gay in Jamaica, another subset of I don't know, tension is could be, finding love. I think I was having this conversation with a friend, and it's just like when you have someone with kind of intersecting identities and marginalized identities layered on top of like your lived experiences, you have a lot of intersectionality. So, I'm Black and I'm gay, but I'm also American at this point. I went to PWI, so it's a lot of code switching. I love Pokemon. I love math and science. I love to, it's a lot of different intersecting identities. And I find that when I'm dating, it's kind of hard to connect with the people who are able to kind of stimulate me physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I think it's just been difficult navigating dating from my lived experiences.
Do you like black men, or what is it about finding somebody or the potential candidates?
I think a lot of the cities I kind of end up living in recently, because in my 20s, I don't think I cared about dating much. I kind of was just like figuring out life. I want to go to work. I'm trying to go to school. But I think once I got into my 30s, I'm just like, hold on now. You've had a lot of fun in your 20s. Now it's kind of really time to settle down and date. And I've ended up in cities like Chapel Hill, Cincinnati, Austin, where, there's not a high population of professional Black gay men. So that does kind of limit itself. I do like to date a Black man. I think I'm open to dating outside my race. If that presents itself, is it something I look look for or like seek out? Not necessarily. I just think for me, it's just kind of the quality of man. I just haven't been able to kind of get what I want. But I've recently been talking to someone, so we'll see how that goes. But it's just kind of hard to find someone who fits your interests in your same city. So then you end up doing long distance, and then after a certain while, that kind of fizzles, and then it's just like you try not to be jaded.
Pursuing your education in primarily white institutions, which is that's what PWI is. How is it navigating that space as a black gay person and finding community and also affirmation and that sort of thing?
And I talked about this in one of my classes. So growing up, so I was born in Jamaica. We came here, when you're immigrant, yes, you had enough money to kind of get you to America, but you still kind of come here, kind of low on resources. So I went to schools in the hood.
Yeah.
Um, like Kodak Black graduated from the high school I went to, not at the same time, but that should kind of put things in perspective. Like, so I always had a very Black experience growing up, K through 12, which I love to this day because I was like the Black kid in all the smart classes, like the gifted classes. So I think my identity was very much so affirmed, like you are Black, smart, and good in math and science. Like you got it. So I decided I want to go to a PW. I was like, I'm around these Black folks all this time. Like, I've had enough. So I'm just like, everybody, they might be going to FAMU. I'm like, I want to go to University of Florida. Like, I want to go to the opposite. So I find it that because of my upbringing being so Black and centered around Blackness, it kind of gave me the affirmations that I can go into any white space and compete at any level because I am smart.
You don't think that you could have done that and been able to compete at a high level at a maybe an HBCU?
I didn't want to. I didn't want to go to fam. I was like, nope. Like these people make fun of me growing up. I don't want it. I'm gonna go over to here and I'm gonna have a good time. And I would say going to a PWI, I didn't experience a lot of the bullying like I did when I went to like predominantly Black spaces. I feel like being Black and gay is a whole nother like thing you have to navigate.
Is that what you got bullied about, was being different?
Yeah, for me, like being gay. And it was just like I could go off to college with some of these same people, but why?
What about this? How do you balance dealing with the bullying that you may get in a mostly black environment versus maybe some of the prejudice or cultural differences that you may experience in a PWI? How do you balance it? And what makes choosing, a PWI more appealing? Is it also expanding your worldview? Like what is it?
I just knew it was just something I'm very intuitive. And I remember in high school, I'm like, I've been around these same folks since middle school. Like I done seen people tussling. I done seen we getting tear gas. And yes, the school is a magnet school. It has a science program, but I know there's more to the world to navigate, especially whiteness. And I was just like, a PWI provides that. It provides a space to navigate the world that you are going to have to live in. And I just knew being surrounded by this black bubble, which at times was oppressive, was also very affirming. And I wanted to try that experience in a white space. And it was just like, you know what? I want to go here and I want to see if I can have a great experience and kind of, thrive. And I did. And I feel like would I, if I have kids, would I encourage them to go to a HBCU? Yeah. I like black spaces, but I just felt like I've had enough and I wanted a change.
Okay, I understand. Let's go back to culture. So we all know about the homophobia that exists, particularly in Jamaican music, which, creates a ripple effect in the broader culture. Why do you think Jamaican culture in particular is so homophobic?
I think it stems from our colonial past and what the slave masters used to do to the men is kind of entrenched in that culture. And I think it comes alive in the music, particularly. I think that is my understanding. I've never really actually done the research myself because when I came here, I just kind of tried to assimilate to American ideologies. And it wasn't until recently I'm starting to embrace more my Jamaican roots. Like I was born in Jamaica. I go there every summer. I know how to speak patois. And so it was just like, it was kind of easier to disconnect from being Jamaican so you won't feel that pain or that hurt. But I remember when I recently went, my dad took us to a dance, and like one of the most homophobic song came on, and it hit my core. Like, I felt like a piece of me just shattered, but then I had to kind of say, no, like, this is just the culture. Like, you can't take it personal, but it does kind of hurt.
How do you reconcile embracing what you know is culture and also being present as a person in all your identities to celebrate your culture?
I think you just have to find whatever form of resistance and how you want to be a disruptor to kind of show up and, make sure it's the right time and place. Because you also want to be safe. And I think for me, I don't mind being an online agitator. It's just like my presence irritates you, but me and people like me exist. When
Mhm.
I heard the song at the dance, I wasn't going to stop the dance. I pretended to dance as well. I pretended like it didn't, sting. For me, I try not to take it personal, because you really can't. Like, if somebody's not going to accept you for who you are, it's not my job to convince anybody.
When you go back home to Jamaica, do you find yourself code switching or being more mindful of the way that you walk and act and that sort of thing?
I'm a lot more mindful. I think um as somebody who identifies as like in between, I can go from mass to femme, you know, it's kind of easy to kind of code switch when I go to Jamaica. Is it exhausting after I get back? Yes, I'm mentally exhausted. Like we went this summer and I think we stayed 8 days. And when I came back, I was just like, I wore some shorts to the resort and kind of walked off the resort. And you hear the almost you hear like the slurs and I'm just like, I thought these shorts were kind of long. Like, y'all lucky I'm not in a Speedo. Like, come on, like just get me back to the States.
How do you think other men there experience their sexuality? Because obviously there are gay men in Jamaica, gay women in Jamaica. So how did they experience that? And when you were there, do you find that some of the people who may be, emitting the slurs are also flirting with you?
So, when I go to Jamaica, I don't look at no man and I don't want them looking at me. But it's interesting that you say that because when I was at the dance, like I saw people looking at me in a way, like when you go to the gay club and you lock eyes with somebody, and I was just like, don't do that. Like, so it was interesting. I just try to stay away from it as a whole. I really don't engage much with any of that while I'm in Jamaica. I think it is a dangerous game.
Mm.
I think
What makes it dangerous?
hearing in the music. The music is not, the music say they're going to kill a Batiman. Like there, it's just entrenched in the culture, at least the fear that I have lived and seen is just, you just might not want to do that. But I've seen other people like live and date and their experiences, they seem a little bit more open, but it also depends on where you live. Like if you live in one of the more poorer or rural areas, I'm sure it's really difficult to navigate. But if you live in
Yeah.
maybe the capital, it could be more accessible. Um, but just for me, I really don't engage in anything when I'm in Jamaica. I literally go visit family, go visit mom. They take us around. We do some touristy type things, and then we go to the country. But yeah, I try to keep a very neutral appearance, not too flashy, but just to give them a little razz, but not too much.
There's no hooking up when you go home to Jamaica.
No.
You were fortunate enough to be able to come to the United States at an earlier age. What do you think your life would have been like navigating your sexuality if you would have been in Jamaica and grown up and say left at 21 or either still been there?
I do have some feminine traits. It probably would have been difficult navigating some of those experiences. Yeah, especially like going to school, I'm sure it wouldn't have been as easy. In America, I got bullied here and there, but for the most part, you kind of just develop tough skin and, bully the bullies. Why not? I don't know how it would have fully been in Jamaica with it being, entrenched in like, the culture. Mhm. That's a tough one.
What gives you the sense of pride that you do have in yourself as a Black gay Jamaican?
I've just seen how far my family has come, the generational wealth they have figured out how to build, how they have navigated being in the US and finding opportunities to kind of, build their life here and also back in Jamaica. I think it just speaks to their level of determination and commitment and sacrifice. And it just makes me want to continue. It's just like, if my parents can, do this, then I can do what I need to do to kind of make sure I set my family on the map.
Last question. So, for other Black men who are of Caribbean descent, who are either working to accept themselves or may be in an environment where they can't live openly, what would be your words of encouragement to them?
I think everybody's journey is individual and it takes time and it takes some looking inwards to kind of figuring out who are you living life for. And I think once you kind of figure out who do you want to live for and who do you want to continue to live for, you would start making more selfish decisions. I think for me, I had to, start putting myself first and kind of figuring out what makes me happy and thinking less about what makes others happy.